All right, everyone, time for a little bit more poll analysis. We've got a couple of new polls, nothing particularly freakish or stands out, but there is news. Number one is that Bloomberg in the aggregate has inched up above almost a flat line by about half a point, and so he's actually rising, possibly very slowly. It would be very, very funny to me if he ended up in the top four. Like if Bloomberg rises by another point, Buttigieg falls by another point. They're about even. You could make the case going forward that all four of the top Dems are geriatric white rich people. And that would not be a good look for the Democrats. Right now, Buttigieg being kind of in the top four is the only saving grace, and that's only because he's gay and he's younger than these other people. Having four very rich, long-term political white people, most of which, other than Bernie Sanders, all of them having come from arguably the right-wing segment of the Democrats, would not be a good look. In that case, Bernie Sanders is the standout one. He could end up actually becoming nominee. My operative theory is that he's going to be hamstrung by the fact that Elizabeth Warren persists in pretending to be progressive. But here's the polling right now. Biden's out in front by 10 points. And this is in the aggregate, so the Bernie bros can't claim skewed polls, bias against Bernie, hashtag Bernie Sanders getting schlonged again. This is a polling aggregate. RCP doesn't have a political axe to grind. It's simply an aggregator of all polling and an aggregator of all news that it can possibly find on politics. Look at their politics page. You're going to find things from Breitbart and Fox, and you're going to find things that are written in Huffington Post and Vox by people who think that Bernie Sanders is center-right. It's an aggregator. It doesn't have a political bias. You can say that the numbers are wrong. You can argue that you should skew them in one way or the other. There's a sampling bias. This polling firm's better than the others. This one's shit. You can argue that, but it is not itself intrinsically biased. When I talk about polls, by the way, and people must understand this, my analysis goes by aggregates. I am not talking about singular polls. There are some polling firms that are better than others. YouGov, for example, in the last few elections has been good. They show Biden out by 9. They show a virtual tie between Sanders and Warren. That makes sense. The aggregate more or less reflects the numbers that YouGov is posting. You've got several others that are showing similar things. That's probably accurate, but not because of an individual poll, because a lot of polls being aggregated within a short span of time. So Biden's out in front. He's the inarguable front runner. As far as state-to-state polling, we still don't have enough. It looks like he's inched up in Iowa, but on a given day, all three of the others beat Biden by a couple of points. Because I think everyone's been a front runner except for Biden now in Iowa, if I remember correctly. There was a time when Warren was ahead. That was a long time ago. I don't think she's anywhere near that now. Buttigieg has been ahead in a couple of polls, which is hysterical since he's in fourth place distantly nationwide. Now he's focusing single-mindedly on one state, hoping to get a boost, I think. And then you've got Sanders. I think he was ahead in one period. If I had to take a wild guess, I would say if you were to hold the first four states' votes today, or in the next week or something. And then we're getting close to it. Remember, it's just in February. It's only a month away. It's very close. Iowa would go narrowly for Buttigieg. He gets a bounce. He comes in the top 3, probably number 3 in New Hampshire. I would favor Sanders to narrowly win New Hampshire. Biden would be, by the way, in a close second in both of these states. He would rack up quite a few delegates. He goes on to win Nevada and South Carolina. At that point, Elizabeth Warren drops out because she hasn't won any of the first 4 states. Probably is counting more on Nevada. I think her operative strategy is win New Hampshire or at least come very close, grab up Nevada, and then go into Super Tuesday. I don't know how good of a strategy that is. I think if she's going to do that, she would need to focus on Iowa, not New Hampshire. She's not. If she manages, as I suspect, to come in third in Iowa, it's not going to look very good for her. Coming in the top 2 in at least a plurality of the starting states is a good thing. Bloomberg at that point would drop out if it weren't for the fact that all of his ad money is being spent on Super Tuesday states. Bloomberg won't drop out in the first 4. I don't expect him even to come in the top 3 in any of these states. I think he'll be in 4th or 5th place in all of them. A normal candidate at that point questions whether they should still be in the race. Bloomberg's not a normal man. He's massively wealthy. He can just drop an extra $100 million on the Super Tuesday states in hopes of coming in 3rd place in a handful of them, racking up just enough delegates so that in a close, contested primary, which is what it'll be, when they go into the convention and there's no clear winner, when it's possible for 2 or 3 different people to technically be the one that's the nominee, Someone like Bloomberg could be the kingmaker, especially because he has the donor class at his beck and call. Buttigieg, I think after Super Tuesday, will probably drop out if that strategy holds. And again, we've got several weeks where we've got to gather more numbers. The problem is this. Right now, we don't have enough polling from the states. We have plenty of national polling. We have new polls, 2 or 3 a week at least, on the national level for the Democrats in the primaries. We have almost nothing from Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, Nevada, which are the first 4 states to vote. We have almost nothing. So really, until we can get maybe the roughest of metrics from the fallout of Iowa, which, by the way, I will try to live stream that night because it's a very important night, until we get that, we got nothing, basically. I want to see a slew of polls. I want to see 4 or 5 different reliable firms do a blanket poll in the first 4 states prior to the Iowa voting. Then I can predict who will win each of those states. And based on that, you can sort of predict what's going to happen at the end of Super Tuesday. I will definitely be streaming on Super Tuesday. I don't care if I have to stream alone and sit there and talk until my voice is hoarse for 3 hours. I will stream on Super Tuesday. By the way, for me, that means streaming at around 4 a.m. So it'll be an all-nighter catered by Red Bull and coffee, probably. As of right now, though, the biggest problem with anyone rising above Biden, and this is why he's still inarguably the best favorite to win, is because Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren keep sort of gravitating back and forth in their narrow ranges, and neither of them can get ahead. And even if one of them were to drop out entirely, it's not clear the other would be able to absorb enough of their support to be the frontrunner. I have a feeling that if Bernie Sanders dropped out tomorrow, almost as many of his fans would flock to Joe Biden as would go for Elizabeth Warren. I think the reverse is true as well. I think that Joe Biden, by the way, it'll be hilarious to see him, if let's say he's the nominee, watching this old dynastic nostalgia candidate, incoherent white dude with a post-70s era political history try to find a running mate will be hilarious. Because the natural inclination is you need someone younger, and you need someone who's not a white male. The obvious choice is Kamala Harris. Choosing Kamala Harris to be your running mate is probably the worst choice you could possibly make. She doesn't debate well. She doesn't come off well. She's got very high unpopularity levels. And there are a lot of people who want to see her kind erased from the party, namely wedge issue candidates who rub people the wrong way and are mostly negative and antagonistic. Watching her try to debate Mike Pence would be a blood sport, honestly. The natural default, therefore, if you're not considering Kamala because of her personality, is Elizabeth Warren, of all people. First female VP will be Elizabeth Warren. I don't think that it'll work. I mean, she's also old. The problem is, if you're choosing from the crop of candidates, there's not a whole lot to choose from. And you can't choose some loser who dropped out in the first one. You can't choose a Beto O'Rourke or something like that, not that you would want to. Julian Castro, I guess, would be an outside choice, maybe for Biden as a VP, as a running mate. I would almost say Buttigieg, except again, he's white and he happens to be male, and there are a lot of people within the Democratic Party who don't like that. They don't like the top of the ticket right now. The top quarter of the field to them feels out of step with what their party is, in their minds, meant to represent. It's funny to watch them become so frustrated. I can almost understand the frustration, though. The DNC has... The Democrats have done themselves a disservice by allowing Sanders specifically to run. This is going to be unpopular to some of you who are more receptive towards Bernie, especially now that he's pretending to be some anti-war revolutionary and not a desperate, bitter, fucking socialistic globalist like he really is. Trust me, I see through the con. Bernie Sanders has never been a Democrat. He's always been an independent. He's made, light of this many times. He's probably not going to have enough support to solidify the party, but in a close election, he could still end up getting nominated and alienate more than half of the Democrats. They'd say, look, here, the Democrats are being led by someone who's not even a member of the Democratic Party long term. What are these people thinking? They would start to, I think that Nancy Pelosi and Tom Perez and some of these others were as demented as Joe Biden is. The problem is, of course, Joe Biden's the front runner. He is demented. Elizabeth Warren is kind of tied with Bernie Sanders for second or third place, however you see it. She's nuts. Her platform is Bernie Sanders. She just covers up the socialism label. And then rounding out that top level is a man who is slowly faltering. Buttigieg is now back down at 8. He could fall below Bloomberg. Now, if that happens, all hell breaks loose. Then the top of the field in the Democratic Party begins to look like the GOP 30 years ago. It's going to be kind of conspicuous now, isn't it? That's about all. Peace out.